In this video, let us discuss the exact Python implementation of the situation and the function that we have just discussed in the previous video. So here in this code block, you can see an Python implementation of our Bob please add function. So whenever you want to implement a Python function, you have to use this def keyword first, that is def. Def means you are telling the Python interpreter that, well, I am about to implement a function. After this def keyword, there are two different parts that you need to remember when you want to implement a Python function. The first part is a function name. In our case, it is simply Bob please add. You can use any different name of your choice, but I just wanted to make it same as whatever I have discussed, so I have used this Bob please add name. So that's the function name using which you can call the function, just like as you called Bob and said Bob please add. So this is the function name. The next part is, after the function name, then inside this opening and closing parenthesis, you have to pass the data items on which this function will work. For example, in our example, we are actually interested to add just two numbers. So that is why I have passed only two data items, that is n1 and n2. n1 will be the first number and n2 means it is the second number. Now these data items on top of which the function will actually work, they are called parameter. And inside this parameter, inside this opening and closing parenthesis after this function, you can pass all the parameters. That is a parameter list. You can pass a list of parameters on top of which the function will work. Now in our case, we just want to add two numbers. That's why we have only two parameters, n1 and n2, but there can be any number of parameters of any type you can pass in the function as a parameter list. So, and then after this after you pass all the data item, after the parameters list are accepted by the function, everything is done, then of course there should be a colon symbol just to tell the Python interpreter that, well, now I am going inside the function. And after that, whatever you will write by putting a little bit of indentation like this after this function heading line, and then everything is called a function body. So this function body should be written by putting a little bit of indentation after this entire heading line, just as you can see in here. Now inside this function body, actually you can do all the operations that you want to do. In our case, basically we are just interested to add these two numbers. So this is basically just an one line function, but there can be any number of operation after this based on the programming requirement. So well, here we have just added the two different numbers, and finally the last line where I am returning the result back to the program. So that's what a function does. First, implement it with def keyword, then function name followed by all the parameters list, then implement this line is called function heading, and after that you have to implement the function which is called function body, and here actually you have to implement the function logic. In our case it is just an addition, and finally return the result back. Now how can you call this function? Well, the function definition or function implementation is done. Now whenever required, how can you call this function? So let's say this part of code is your usual flow of Python code. From here, let's say you have started writing the code. There may be some extra line like let's say the input, print, or several lines. And after that, at some point, you wanted to add these two numbers. So in your Python program, you just need to call the function like this. Just specify the function name, call with the function name, whatever name you have specified here. So just call with that name, and then again here inside this opening and closing parenthesis, just pass the actual data on top of which you want to get the result back. So these data items, so here actually I am interested to get the addition on top of 5 and 4.5 specifically, and that's why I passed 5 and 4.5 here. So that is, these things are basically called an argument. So whenever it goes to the function side, when it is just accepting some data item, it is called parameters, and when you are actually passing the values of those data items, then it is in the function caller side, then it is called an argument, and this entire piece is called function calling. So these are the different parts of the function, and now let us clarify this entire thing through a Python programming demo.